Good to have your company this Saturday morning, the last Saturday of winter, of course. Now, throughout the past year and a half, we've seen two ends of the spectrum when it comes to small business. Some have really struggled, as we know, while others have thrived. To take a deep dive into this subject, we are joined by business strategist and author Andrew Griffiths. Good morning, Andrew. We've got a slight audio problem there with Andrew. No, okay, we've got it up there now. Andrew, look, the old, I think it's the old Gucci line, isn't it? The quality is remembered long after the price is forgotten. A big point for you is that people in small business should know their worth.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's a really interesting kind of a point because, unfortunately, a lot of people in small business who really put their heart, their soul, their money, worked ridiculously hard into their business in a huge way, which is really the only way to be successful in a small business in many ways. And then they don't really understand the value that they bring or the worth that they bring to their customers, and they tend to undercharge dramatically. And this is something that I've seen over many years, and I've certainly seen it all around the world. It's a bit of an issue. It's why I wrote this latest book.
Well, tell us about the book.
Well, it's called Someone Has to Be the Most Expensive, Why Not Make It You? And even though it's a funny kind of a title, I guess the reality of it is that there really does have to be someone who's the most expensive. And you may as well kind of claim that role, but of course, you can't be the most expensive and deliver poor service or poor quality, etc. But the reason that I really did write it was because over many years, I spoke to more and more business owners, and I really came across this constant kind of challenge where even if the business was fully booked almost, they would be struggling to make profits. And I would see burnt out, fried, tired people who are really, really good at what they do. I mean, their quality of their product or their service is absolutely fantastic, yet they're just not charging enough for it. And that's why I wrote this book to say, well, look, even if you're not going to be the most expensive, at least start to charge what you're worth. Understand and identify what value really means to your customers and start to change that model and certainly avoid playing in that cheaper end of town where so many business owners actually do. They strive to be the cheapest and look at that as a strategy for business. And I think it's a terrible strategy in business, that price-driven. So that's what really led to the book, and it's amazing how much it's resonated with people because of the timing now. I think is really significant. As in, there's a lot of shift happening in the world. There's a lot of change, but we've also got a world that communicates much easier, and people can find you much easier. So if you're the best and you've got this reputation and you charge accordingly, there will always be people that are going to track you down and find you. And that's why we're at this anomaly kind of crossroad in our kind of business timeline or our evolutionary timeline, I guess.
And if we look a bit at that boundary spanning of the psychology in what you're saying, it makes a lot of sense to think about business operators having confidence, being strong in their thinking. And, because there's been so many challenges, we're being thrown challenges every single day all across our lives, including small business. And to value who you are as an individual and as a business is so important to be able to get to the other side.
It really is. And you're so right, Tim. Individually, that whole imposter syndrome or lack of self-worth or understanding it's so rife. And it's actually, I'm working on a book on imposter syndrome as one of my next books. But I think in the small business space, a lot of the time, you're actually the product even. If you're a graphic designer, if you're an accountant, if you're, even a gardener or whatever it might be, when you're looking at smaller businesses, that sometimes because you're so intrinsically tied into the actual end result of the product that it's easy for your self-worth to be challenged or questioned or to not see it. I see it a lot with creative people, particularly the graphic designers, even artists and performers and things like that, who just really struggle to charge accordingly. So, it's about understanding that if you don't charge what you're worth in your business, if you don't charge enough, you don't build a strong business. And we see this at times like now. We saw it during the GFC, where so many small businesses went broke very, very quickly. And the reason was because there's no real resilience in the business financially. And that's because their profit margins weren't high enough. They didn't have enough fat in the business in reality for that kind of resilience. So part of my messaging is by charging what you're actually worth, charging more, charging accordingly, you build a much stronger business. You've just kind of got to get out of your own way and overcome that, poverty mentality if you have it, or this desire to say, well, my customers won't be able to afford it. Well, my argument with that is you've probably got the wrong customers. And I'm not basing this on just, I woke up one morning and thought about this. I've been studying this as a concept around the world for decades. I've come across so many businesses that I've worked with, that I've met through speaking and writing, and I see this as a challenge along the way. One of the things that I do with the people that I work with initially, the first thing I do for most of them is say, you've got to put your rates up. And I hear this barrage of reasons why they can't, and people won't pay, and we can't do that, the market, rah, rah. And I say, they're the stories that we tell ourselves. That's not necessarily the truth. Yeah. So a lot of it is overcoming that. And I've worked with neuroscientists, I've worked with psychologists, I've worked with a range of different people to really help to understand what that's all about.
Yeah, and we haven't got all the time in the world this morning, but I'd love to get you back on down the track. So thanks for talking to us. And you touched on an interesting mentality, because quite often if people see a price that's cheap, they start, what's wrong with that?
Exactly.
What's the problem with that? All right, good to talk to you. Enjoy your weekend, and thanks, and all the best with the book.
Thank you so much, Tim. I'd love to come back again sometime soon. You take care.
Thank you, Andrew.